The Great Train Robbery. The Great Train Robbery took place on August 8, 1963, when a gang of 15 men targeted the Royal Mail train traveling from Glasgow to London in England, making off with more than £2.6 million in used banknotes, worth over £50 million today, after receiving an inside tip from a contact known as the Ulsterman, who revealed the timing, location, and carriage containing the cash. The gang chose a remote section of track near Ledburn in Buckinghamshire to carry out the crime, rigging a false red railway signal by removing the green bulb and replacing it with a red one to stop the train around 3 a.m. Once it halted, they boarded the engine and overpowered driver Jack Mills by striking him on the head with an iron bar. They then uncoupled the first two carriages, which included the engine and the high-value package coach, and moved them half a mile up the track. Their own driver struggled to operate the engine, but eventually managed to position it for the theft. Inside the targeted carriage were 128 mail sacks filled with cash, coins, and valuables guarded by only 4 postal workers. The gang quickly formed a human chain to move the sacks from the carriage into a waiting truck in about 30 minutes. They then transported the loot to Leatherslade Farm, a remote hideout 27 miles away, where they began counting and dividing the money. The plan was to stay hidden for months until the police investigation cooled down, but instead they remained at the farm for several days, leaving fingerprints and evidence on cups, tables, and other items. This gave the police critical forensic leads, and after discovering the abandoned farm, they recovered key evidence linking the robbers to the crime. Within months, most of the gang were arrested and later given long prison sentences, although some, like Ronnie Biggs, famously escaped custody and evaded capture for years. The robbery remains one of the most famous heists in British history, due to the scale of the loot, the boldness of the plan, and the eventual capture and trials of the perpetrators. The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum heist took place in Boston, Massachusetts, on March 18, 1990, and remains the largest art theft in history, with an estimated loss of $500 million. It happened in the early hours after St. Patrick's Day, when 2 men disguised as Boston police officers approached the museum in a fake police car. They claimed to be responding to a disturbance and were allowed entry by a night security guard who believed they were genuine officers. Once inside, they told the guard he matched the description of someone with an outstanding warrant and ordered him away from his desk. They then called the second security guard over and handcuffed both men, using duct tape to cover their eyes before moving them to the basement. With the guards restrained, the thieves moved freely through the museum, triggering motion sensors but not the main alarm system. They went directly to high-value works, including pieces by Rembrandt, Vermeer, Degas, and Manet. Instead of removing paintings from their frames in the usual way, they cut the canvases out, likely to make them easier to transport. They also took smaller items, including a bronze eagle finpole from a flagpole and a Chinese vase. The robbery lasted about 81 minutes, which is unusually long for a crime of this nature. After gathering the stolen pieces, they loaded them into their vehicle and drove away without interference. When staff discovered the theft later that morning, the empty frames were left hanging on the walls where they remain as a public reminder. The FBI has investigated numerous leads and offered large rewards, but no arrests have been made, and none of the stolen art has been recovered. The heist's combination of careful planning, disguise, control over security, and targeted selection of artworks has led experts to believe the thieves had insider knowledge. Despite decades of investigation and public interest, the case remains unsolved, and the missing pieces are still listed on the FBI's Most Wanted Art Crimes database. The museum continues to operate, but the theft has become one of the most infamous cultural crimes in modern history. The Banco Central Burglary. The Banco Central Burglary was one of the largest bank robberies in history, taking place in Fortaleza, Brazil, over the weekend of August 6 to the 7th, 2005. And resulting in the theft of around 160 million Brazilian reais, worth about $70 million at the time. The criminals spent 3 months planning the operation and began by renting a commercial property about 80 meters from the bank, registering it as a legitimate landscaping business to avoid suspicion. From this location, they began digging a tunnel toward the bank's vault, eventually creating a passage that stretched 78 meters under 2 city blocks. The tunnel was professionally built with wooden supports, plastic lining, and its own lighting and ventilation system to ensure safety and efficiency. To remove the large amounts of soil without attracting attention, the gang used their fake landscaping cover, transporting the dirt in trucks under the guise of gardening work. The tunnel led directly beneath the vault floor, which was made of reinforced concrete and steel. And over the final weekend, they broke through a 1.1-meter hole from below, using tools that avoided triggering the bank's alarms. The stolen cash was stored in 50 real bills that were not numbered in sequence, making them almost impossible to trace. The burglars timed the heist for the weekend when the bank was closed and no staff were present, giving them uninterrupted access to the vault. By Monday morning, when employees returned and discovered the break-in, the criminals had already escaped with the money. Authorities believe around 25 people were involved, including engineers, tunnel diggers, logistics coordinators, and drivers. Despite a major police investigation, only a small portion of the cash, about 8%, was ever recovered. Several suspects were arrested, but many of those believed to be involved either disappeared or were later murdered in disputes over the stolen money. The level of planning, engineering skill, and execution made this robbery stand out among major heists, and it remains a reference point in criminal history due to its size and sophistication. The Antwerp Diamond Heist. The Antwerp Diamond Heist took place in 2003 in Belgium's famous Diamond Quarter, a major global center for diamond trading. The heist targeted the highly secure Antwerp Diamond Center vault, which stored billions of dollars worth of loose diamonds, gold, and jewelry belonging to various traders. Leonardo Notarbartolo, an experienced Italian thief, was the mastermind behind the operation. He spent years gaining trust by posing as a wealthy diamond dealer and even rented office space inside the Diamond Center to gain insider access. Before the robbery, Notarbartolo and his crew built an exact replica of the vault off-site to practice bypassing its multiple security layers. The vault was protected by 10 layers of security, including infrared heat detectors, seismic sensors, magnetic locks, a steel door with a lock requiring a combination of 100 million possibilities, and constant video surveillance. On the night of the heist, the crew first disabled security cameras by taping them over and used fake heat sources to trick the motion sensors. They covered infrared detectors with aluminum foil to block detection and bypassed magnetic sensors with thin metal plates to avoid triggering alarms. The team used a custom-made tool to pick the vault's complex lock silently. Inside, they forced open 123 of 160 safety deposit boxes, stealing diamonds, gold, and jewelry worth over $100 million. Despite the long hours taken to complete the heist, no alarms were triggered, and guards remained unaware until the next day. The crew quickly left the scene and destroyed evidence at a safe location. However, a bag of garbage containing receipts, vault blueprints, and DNA evidence was found in a ditch, leading to their arrest. Authorities recovered only a small portion of the stolen goods. Most of the loot vanished into the black market. The Antwerp Diamond Heist remains one of the most sophisticated and successful jewelry robberies ever committed, showcasing the planning, skill, and patience involved in pulling off such a daring crime. The Hatton Garden Safe Deposit Heist. Garden Safe Heist was a high-profile burglary carried out in London's jewelry district over the Easter bank holiday weekend in April 2015, in which an estimated £14 million worth of cash, gold, and valuables were stolen. The crime was committed by a group of mostly elderly, semi-retired criminals, many in their 60s and 70s, who were later dubbed the Bad Grandpas by the media. They targeted the Hatton Garden Safe Deposit Company because the long holiday break meant the building would be empty for several days, giving them time to work without interruption. On Thursday, 2 April 2015, they entered the premises disguised as workmen, using a key to access the communal entrance. They reached the basement by forcing open a lift shaft and climbing down to avoid triggering alarms. The main obstacle was a reinforced concrete wall about 50 centimeters thick, protecting the vault. They used an industrial diamond tip drill, a Hilti DD350, to bore 3 holes large enough for a person to crawl through. Their first attempt to enter the vault failed, and they left, returning on Saturday night to complete the job. Once inside the vault, they forced open 73 safe deposit boxes using crowbars, angle grinders, and other tools, filling bags with cash, jewelry, gold, and precious stones. They left the same way they came, hauling the stolen goods up the lift shaft and exiting through the communal door. The crime was only discovered on Tuesday morning when staff returned after the holiday. Police identified the gang using CCTV footage, vehicle tracking, and phone records, leading to multiple arrests within weeks. Most of the crew were convicted, although a significant portion of the stolen items was never recovered. The robbery became notable for the age of the offenders, the detailed planning, and the fact that it was carried out without violence. It remains one of the largest and most audacious burglaries in UK history, remembered for its precision and unusual circumstances. The Lufthansa Heist. The Lufthansa Heist took place in 1978 and was one of the largest cash thefts in United States history, taking place in the early hours of December 11 at the Lufthansa cargo terminal of John F. Kennedy International Airport in New York. Masterminded by mob associate Jimmy Burke of the Lucchese crime family, the operation was set in motion after cargo worker Louis Werner, who was in debt from gambling, tipped off Burke about a massive incoming shipment of cash from Germany. The crew stole a Ford van to transport the money and planned the robbery to occur around 3:00 a.m., when security would be minimal. Burke selected a team of 6 masked and armed men, giving them strict orders to be quick, avoid unnecessary violence, and take only the targeted shipment. Upon arrival, the robbers overpowered the night security guard, tied him up, took his keys, and forced him to reveal the number and location of other employees inside the terminal. They rounded up the remaining staff, blindfolded, and handcuffed them in the break room to prevent any alarm from being raised. The crew then accessed the secured storage area, located the shipment from American Express and other banks, and loaded $5 million in cash and $875,000 in jewelry into the stolen van. The operation was executed in under an hour, and the team drove the van to a pre-arranged garage in Brooklyn, where the loot was quickly transferred into smaller vehicles for concealment. The heist's aftermath was marked by a violent cover-up, as Burke ordered the murders of multiple participants and associates to eliminate witnesses and reduce the risk of law enforcement tracing the crime back to him. Despite an extensive investigation by the FBI, no one was ever convicted for the actual robbery, and the stolen money and jewels were never recovered. The Lufthansa heist remains infamous for its scale, precision, and the mystery surrounding the fate of the loot, cementing its place in organized crime history. The Brink's-Mat Robbery. The Brink's-Mat Robbery took place on November 26, 1983, at the Brink's-Mat Security Depot near Heathrow Airport in London, and became one of the most infamous gold heists in history. 6 armed men carried out the raid with the help of an insider, security guard Anthony Black, who allowed them entry into the building. The robbers originally believed they would find £3 million in cash, but instead discovered 3 tons of gold bullion worth £26 million at the time. They tied up and blindfolded the guards, disabled the alarm system, and began searching the vault. During this search, one robber noticed boxes that contained gold instead of cash, prompting a quick change of plan to take all of it along with some diamonds. The gold was extremely heavy, so the gang used a forklift truck inside the warehouse to load it into their van. They made their getaway without immediate pursuit, as the alarm had been disabled, and drove the van to a safe location. The bullion could not be sold in its original form, so it was melted down in makeshift foundries, mixed with copper to disguise its origin, and then sold in small amounts over time. The profits were laundered through Swiss bank accounts and invested in property and businesses. Police soon learned of the inside involvement when Anthony Black mentioned details to his brother-in-law, who passed the information on, helping investigators trace connections to the gang. Despite the scale of the crime, only 2 men were convicted for the actual robbery, and the majority of the gold was never recovered. In the years following, the robbery became linked to numerous violent deaths as disputes over money shares and fears of exposure led to murders within criminal circles. The event remains significant for both the sheer value of the haul and the complex criminal network it exposed, revealing how organized crime operated across international borders and through legitimate businesses. Today it is remembered as a case that changed how security firms and police investigated large-scale thefts and financial crimes. The United California Bank Heist, California Bank Heist, which took place in March 1972, was the largest bank burglary in the United States at the time, with thieves stealing an estimated $9 million in cash and valuables. The heist was planned and led by Emil Dincio, a skilled criminal from Ohio, known for his expertise in bank burglaries. The gang traveled from Ohio to Laguna Niguel, California, where the United California Bank branch was located. They chose this branch because it was in a quiet shopping plaza with minimal police presence. The group rented a townhouse nearby, which served as their base during the heist. Before the robbery, they spent several days surveilling the bank, learning the staff schedules, security systems, and alarm layout. On the night of the heist, the crew climbed onto the bank's roof, cut through it, and entered the building from above to avoid detection. Once inside, they located the alarm wiring and carefully disabled it to prevent alerts. They then used explosives to blow open the bank's reinforced vault door. The burglars worked through the night, opening hundreds of safe deposit boxes and collecting cash, gold, coins, and other valuables. The operation was not a quick smash and grab. The gang returned multiple nights to the bank to continue emptying boxes. After each visit, they cleaned up carefully to remove any fingerprints or evidence. Despite their careful planning, investigators eventually found a fingerprint on a kitchen cabinet in the rented townhouse. This clue led to the arrest of Emil Dincio and his crew. Most of the stolen money and valuables were recovered by law enforcement. The United California bank heist remains a notable example of a well-organized, multi-night bank burglary that combined careful planning, technical skill, and bold execution. Its success and eventual failure provide insight into criminal methods and law enforcement responses during the early 1970s.